A very, very warm welcome to everyone joining us for this evening's webinar, celebrating just some of the important work that schools and other organisations are doing in their local communities to welcome refugee families. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Radha Chakraborty, Chair of Trustees at the Bell Foundation. Radha will be hosting the webinar today. Radha is Director of Development Media International, an NGO that works on improving child health and cognitive outcomes across 14 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. She's also Vice Chair of Book Trust, the UK's largest children's reading charity, and a non-executive Director of Screen Yorkshire. Over to you, Rod.
Thanks so much, Caroline. That makes me sound much grander than I actually am. Welcome, everybody. It's so nice to have you with us, and so many of you with us. And I've loved the weather chat that we've had so far. I'm delighted that we've got 4 fascinating speakers with us today, and they're going to be discussing different aspects of this very important topic. They'll be talking about effective practices that they've seen for developing a sense of belonging and community in school settings, and what the key factors were that made these practices successful, and also the advice that they would share with other schools. So each of our 4 speakers will present for about 5 minutes, and then we'll have around 20 minutes at the end for questions. So as Caroline mentioned, please use the Q&A function to put the questions to us. I saw one of the questions in the chat about what is a school of sanctuary. Megan will explain that in a second. Megan, Nikki, Nahed and Claudia, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves at the start of your individual presentations so that our audiences get to know a little bit more about you, that would be great. So we're going to start with Megan. Megan, over to you.
Thanks, Radha, and thank you again to the Bell Foundation for inviting me to come along to talk a little bit about the work we do with Schools of Sanctuary. So my name is Megan, and I'm the Schools of Sanctuary Programme Manager at City of Sanctuary UK. City of Sanctuary UK is a really small UK-wide charity working in the refugee sector, whose vision is that the UK is a place of safety, welcome, respect and understanding for anyone seeking safety here. So this might be people who are refugees, this might be asylum seekers, and it might be other migrant groups as well. Now, one of the ways we try to realise this vision is by working with mainstream institutions like schools, and I am lucky enough to have the job of managing that area of our work. So what is a School of Sanctuary? Well, School of Sanctuary is a support programme for a network of over 1,000 schools across the UK. And we work with schools to help them think about the provision and practice that effectively supports new arrivals, especially children who have been forced to flee their countries. And also we work with schools to help them talk about and teach about the experiences of people seeking safety, hopefully to combat some common misconceptions, build empathy, connection and solidarity. But today I'm hoping to touch a little bit on some of the fantastic things that I've seen in our network of over 1,000 schools and the different approaches they take to building community and belonging for those seeking sanctuary. So I think first and foremost, it's really important to remember that for so many families seeking sanctuary, schools are often the first trusted institution that they come into contact with. And so they can play a really vital role in making sure they have access to the information and the signposting, to the services that they need to help them feel safe and secure and supported in their new home. So if we see belonging and community as having your needs, your priorities and your identities seen, understood and valued, then this is where schools can play such a vital role. So from really small things like signposting families to local places of worship, to support services like local refugee charities, or ensuring that a child has good quality and clean uniforms that they can start school with, to much bigger things. So, we have schools in our network that have gone the extra mile, and they host and coordinate food banks in school to make sure that families who often have very few resources can get access to basic food and different ingredients. We have schools that also host and organise ESOL classes to help families learn languages, trying to make some of these things as accessible as possible for different families. It's also about recognising that for newly arrived families, school truly is their community, in the sense that they've been forced to leave behind lots of their support systems. And so schools can play a really huge role in standing with them when they're going through some really challenging circumstances, whether that's just having, an open door policy and being there to talk to if they have any concerns, to writing letters of support for their asylum case, or for helping to advocate for them with the council or with housing teams. There's so many things that a school can do to help them feel a little bit safer, a little bit more sense of belonging in that local area. The other thing I wanted to quickly touch on, and I am keeping an eye on the time, was the role that schools can play in building belonging more widely beyond the school gates. I'm sure, like me, most of you share the view that schools are the heart of our communities. They have a really, really big influence. And so schools can really shape the way that people in a local area respond to and welcome new arrivals. And they can do this by very loudly leading with their values and leading with their example and encouraging and inspiring others to do the same. I thought it'd be good to give you an example of a school that's done exactly this. And there was a wonderful school I worked with who, on learning that a large number of Afghan families were arriving in their town and being housed in a hotel relatively near to them, they reached out to the local council and said, "We are happy to offer school places for any child that needs it." And so it's because of this that on a very random Monday in the middle of the school year, they welcomed nearly 30 new children. And rather than trying to conceal this or not talk about this with their community, the head teacher instead, the week before, wrote a letter home to all the parents, saying that she was really proud for their school to be a place of safety for every child, a place where every child felt that they could be themselves, and was really supported by all of the staff. And she looked forward to seeing how all of the children and the community more widely welcomed the newest members of their school family into their local area. And as soon as she did this, she was inundated by phone calls and emails from different parents saying what they could do to offer more support and help to the new members of their community, their new neighbours. And the next week, every child was able to arrive in school with a new rucksack, new school equipment, and plenty more, because the families in the local community had stepped forward, following that teacher's call. And it actually ended up with the school setting up this fantastic friendly face scheme, whereby every new family was matched with a family who had a child in their class, who was responsible for kind of greeting that parent carer at the school gates and checking in with them at school events and saying, "How are you? Is there anything I can do?" Again, kind of building that sense of community and belonging. So I think when we're talking about community and belonging, there's the two kind of aspects we need to think about. There's the kind of practical and material things, but there's also the softer relational things that you can do to make up community as well. So just quickly thinking about what makes these examples successful and what you should think about. I think firstly, it's important to recognise that there's not a one-size-fits-all approach for different people and families and children seeking sanctuary. Everyone's different. They come with different backgrounds and journeys and experiences and challenges and needs today. And so it's about building those relationships and having those conversations where you can understand those a little bit better and make sure that you're fully supporting them in whatever way they might need. Secondly, whilst a child can feel very safe and supported in school, it's really important that you think beyond the school gates and think about what you can see and how you can support them there. because they can't really feel a sense of belonging if they're in a very different circumstance to their peers as well. And it's really important. And schools can play a really important role advocating for them there as well. And thirdly and finally, I would say, don't think you're alone in this. So look around your local area to see who else is working with children and families seeking safety, and how you can pool your resources, pool your insights, and work together and collaborate on this. You know, these networks are community. Community isn't just one individual person or different people or one individual institution. It's about working together as a collective in support of one another. And so go and have a look who's already doing things and how you can work together a little bit better in your local area as well. And that's it from me.
Thanks so much, Megan. And I love just those ideas that were both very practical and inspiring at the same time. I can already see questions coming up for you. We'll save those till after all our speakers, but thanks so much, Megan. And we'll talk to you in a couple more minutes. And I was thinking, Nikki, that what Megan's been talking about is a really good segue to what you were going to cover as well, and kind of builds on some of the points you made. So I'm going to hand over to you now.
Yes, thanks very much, Radha. Yes, so I'm Nikki Ajibade. I've been an EAL specialist for nearly 27 years now, working for Warwickshire. And we do quite a lot of training and support for families that are refugees and asylum seekers through our links with migration team in the local authority. So yes, a lot of the things that Megan said chime with what I was going to say and I hope that I can provide as well a few more angles to that. Totally agree that, you know, all children, I think we can all agree, need to feel safe, valued and secure. That's a prerequisite for learning. So yes, this is particularly true of sanctuary seeking children and families. So yes, as Megan was saying, the first task is for the school to develop a culture and a context that will enhance the refugees' resilience and help them feel safe and start to develop that really important sense of belonging and connection to wider community. So in Warwickshire, we have some dedicated training courses and resources that we use with our schools to help them provide what we call an enhanced induction and welcome for new arrivals. Our induction guidance follows the Bell Foundation PAWS model. Some of you may be familiar with it. PAWS, P-A-W-S, P for prepare, A for alert, W for welcome and S for support. So I'm going to focus just on one aspect, really, on the prepare, because that is absolutely crucial. And given the time constraints, I think I wouldn't be able to cover everything in the guidance, but I will put a link in the chat where you can go into our Warwickshire pages and download all of the induction guidance that we have for early years, for primary and for secondary. So, of course, the first step is a quality induction meeting with the child's parents or carers. And this is the start to develop that communication bridge, as Megan was saying, so important to really get an understanding, because this is not a homogeneous group. There's such a high level of diversity within this group. So we really need to understand the child's context and the family's context. And it's also a way of understanding the child's potential and making sure that it's not lost. We know that children are not empty vessels when they walk through the door. They have lots of skills and talents and knowledge. They're superpowers that, you know, may go unrecognized. And we want to clearly play to these strengths and build on existing knowledge and skills. And just a little thing about talents, just to mention a few I've come across just recently. A 14-year-old refugee child from Ukraine who's the most amazing classical guitarist, a 10-year-old chess champion from Turkey that I was working with just last week, an 18-year-old taekwondo world champion from Iraq. I could go on, and again with parents as well. A couple of Sundays ago, I was doing some volunteering work in a hotel, and I was working with an asylum-seeking parent from Afghanistan. He has a PhD in civil engineering from the Kumamoto University in Japan. So he speaks English, Dari, Pashto, and Japanese. I happen to have lived in Japan as well, so there we were, to everyone's surprise, chattering away in Japanese. So there are a lot of hidden talents that we really need to be aware of, because they are going to enhance our school community. So going back to that parental induction meeting, it is so valuable, and it helps to start develop that ongoing school partnership working. Getting that communication plan sorted, that's absolutely excellent. And some of our schools, and I think probably this is across the country, they use these digital classroom platforms to communicate with all parents, and often they include a bilingual facility. And a parent mentioned to me just a few weeks ago how useful it was to be able to communicate directly with the teacher in her first language. The one that they were using in that case was Class Dojo. So at that meeting, it's talking about how communication can work, because that is so important for the families to understand how things are working in the classroom, how they can support their children. Other schools in our area, of course, are lucky enough to have bilingual staff that often act as a key contact, for families. And there is a school I work regularly in, has a bi-weekly drop-in for EL parents, and offering support for newly arrived EAL parents. And another one that used to use this parent ambassadors, similar to the buddy system for children. So lots of that is really important right at the beginning. And of course, it's an information sharing meeting. So it's not just gathering information, but it's also imparting information, because as we can all imagine, it's very difficult for parents that are coming from another cultural context, a different education system, to sort of understand how school works here. We have schools, some of them do home visits for all their newly arrived EAL families. That's a common thing that happens in reception classes, but in some schools they do this for all EAL families. And I think at this point, it helps to just mention that we need to recognize a power dynamic at play when we're interacting with culturally and linguistically diverse families from minority groups. So we often are promoting having an approach that involves something called cultural reciprocity. What do I mean by cultural reciprocity? It's about basically being open to learning from others and the way they see things. So it's working in intercultural situations and contexts where we understand that things may be different. It's not that one culture has it right and the other wrong. It's just simply different. But having those conversations and having that approach where, it's very, if you like, culturally curious. So this is how it happens here, and how might it happen in your country? So this approach is where, when schools have this approach, this, as we say, this cultural reciprocity approach, they have higher levels of parental engagement, and that is a key factor for any child's academic success. In short, just having induction policies that reflect induction practices that focus on the child and the family's strengths through this, as I said, this ethos of cultural reciprocity is a key advice. And of course, if we have that parental engagement, that helps us to effectively plan out strategies and resources that can support the child in school to develop that positive sense of self and that sense of belonging, which is so important. A few other strategies that you will see in the guidance, if you want to go and use the link and download it, is little things like a newly arrived child in the classroom. We know the buddy system, and with their buddy is given jobs in the classroom right from the get-go. So they're meant to feel that, you know, they're an important member of that community, you know, handing out pencils, taking the register down to the office. These little things all add up into giving them that sense of belonging. So those are my key advices, and I think I've possibly run out of time. I'll hand over to you, Radha.
Thank you so much, Nikki. And Nahed was so keen to to follow on that. We've got her on screen as well. Nikki, I thought that was fascinating, and that point about cultural reciprocity and how to make that work in practical terms, I think it'd be really useful to come back to in the Q&A session as well. But thank you so much for that. And I'm going to now hand over to Nahed, who can give us, I think, a sort of a different perspective as to what it feels like to be from the families as well as from the schools side of things. So I'm going to hand over to Nahed.
Thank you, Megan, and Nikki also for your speech. It was lovely to hear all of that. My name is Nahed, and I'm Arabic teacher, Century ambassador, and a community group leader. Maybe what I will speak about is it's also about the Refugee Week, but it might be slightly different as another idea of a parent or someone has this situation. So I'm not from England. I came as a Syrian refugee, but I also now working on the education system. So sometimes we need really to understand how a refugee can feel when they arrive to the UK, and what it's mean when you are coming back home, trying to switch off to speak in another language, to be bilanguage, and to be able to switch off between not just a word in your mouth, but it will be more your culture, your lifestyle, and everything. And really, when I will give an example, it will be more about a personal example. Since I arrived to the UK, the life was absolutely different, and it clearly remember me how I switched off between the language and the culture. And over time, it's noticed that how children in my community start to begin to lose their home language. Well, when that happened, it's just not just the matter of forgetting some word or how they can communicate with their parents. It can mean more valuable about losing themselves and their identity and who they are. So how we can, as a community, protect their identity. And this is how is the idea of it's come to me to start the Noon Club. Noon Club, it's birthed 5 years ago. And it start to question myself about how I can support these children to be able to manage between themselves, where they are from, and all their lovely life that they left behind, and also being able to understand the education system and manage their English and science and all of that. So Nona Club, we started as a club to speak about our culture, to tell joke, or maybe sing a song of in our own language. The goal was to help the children to feel proud of themselves and to speak their language and to not forget their mother tongue, which is really important even for themselves to be able to develop in English at school. And I've witnessed really a joy also with the learning, and there is a lot of lovely stories of their successfuls. We have in our club over than 25 children who they passed their GCSE in Arabic, which has allowed them to do A-level in in advance, and we have 4 of them. They are in university now. I'm just so proud of them. There is a lot of successful stories to tell. It's like a small community planting seeds to start their life in the future, but also not to forget their own language. And but on that time, I just realized that, okay, we find a way to help the children, but we still have a gap between the mothers and the children, because the children improve their English, the mother is not yet. So this is the idea of having a space when it's safe, no judge for the new mothers arriving to the UK. They are able to speak with no judge and express themselves. It's not an English class, because sometimes it's been like, is it an English class? Because it's more about it's not a class. It's Bloom Group. Bloom Group is a group of ladies who they feel lonely in Warwickshire, specifically in Nuneaton, who they can come and just express themselves. Actually, it's turned to be more learning English, learning the lifestyle in the UK, asking questions, signpost them with the right people to answer these questions. We have visitors from different places who they come and give a talk. So it's more linking between the ladies in Nuneaton and with the lifestyle in England. Over the time, it was really positive how we can find a successful stories of those ladies who they starting to be shy and able to speak. Now they are successfully have a paid job or a volunteer job. They are able also to invite new ladies to join us, which is now the group start with myself and other volunteer, and now we are over 30 ladies, and all of us from different background. It's not Syrian anymore. It's from around 16 country now, and I'm so proud of that. It's like the small world in one room. We are able to share language, culture, and celebrate our successful stories, especially now on the Refugee Week. We did a very lovely celebration to talk about how this journey was and what did you achieve and what is you planning to do in the future. We did a lovely project called Wish Board, which is we collect the wishes of those ladies and how they can put their wishes in reality soon, what they need to achieve, and how that will be successful. So basically, I just feel like the summary of what I talk. You not maybe not need a new club or a Bloom group. You maybe need something else will fit the family who they arrive to your area or to your school. Just something to make them feel like, yeah, we are here. We are a part of this community. We can help and we can do something. We are not extra. We are a part of here. And I would really thank you for inviting me to talk about my experience as an Arabic teacher and also a Syrian refugee in Warwickshire. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nahed. And a lot of what you said really resonated with me personally about the risks about losing one's mother tongue. And I love the sound of Bloom. As I said, I grew up in Nuneaton. My mother would have loved to go to something like that had it existed in those days.
She's more than welcome. Yeah, you're very welcome.
Thank you. And then finally, thank you, Nahed. And finally to our last speaker, Claudia, I'm delighted to welcome you. I think some things you're going to talk about draw a number of these threads together before we go to the Q&A. So over to you.
My name is Claudia Lopez Prieto. I'm an EAL specialist and advocate for the Latin American community in London. First of all, I want to say thank you to the Bell Foundation for inviting me to be a panelist this afternoon and to all of you who are joining us. Now, I'm the EAL, English as an Additional Language lead and teacher at St. Gabriel's College. It's not a college, it's a secondary school. The name can be misleading, in Lambeth. And I've been an educator for over 17 years, with the past 10 years dedicated to serving the incredible young people and families in this borough. I'm also proud to lead the Somos Lambeth, the EAL borough-wide network supporting EAL provision across all schools. Right, a bit about the schools. So at St. Gabriel's, 27% of our schools are from Latin American backgrounds, the largest and fastest growing migrant group in Lambeth, yet it's still often invisible in national policy. As a migrant woman, I understand firsthand what it means to live between cultures, learn a language, and that drives everything I do. My mission goes far beyond teaching English. I want our students to feel confident in their voice, proud of their culture, and fully equipped to thrive. That's why I've developed a bespoke EAL curriculum at St. Gabriel's that pairs academic English with cultural identity work. We celebrate where students come from while preparing them for success in English schools and beyond. out. This includes classroom strategies, creative projects, and interventions that are fully personalised. My work focuses on more than just helping students learn English. It's about helping them feel valued, seen, and celebrated. And that's why I've designed this tailored EAL curriculum that weaves together academic English, cultural heritage, and well-being. I want our students to thrive, not only in exams, but in who they are. Every day I use a holistic ethics of care approach. That means building real relationships, getting to know each student's story, interests, and strengths. I run small group workshops, check-ins, and transition programs to make sure every child feels safe, confident, and belongs. One of the most powerful things we do is collaborate with organizations like LAWA, which is the Latin American Women's Aid. We run something called Taller de Chicas, which is a space for Latin American girls from all year groups to talk, learn, and build their confidence. It's a safe, empowering environment that focuses on identity, well-being, and self-expression. For many girls, this is actually the first time they've been in a space that fully reflects who they are. We also partner with UCL on the Orbits program, where our Year 10 students get to work with real scientists on research. All these scientists are Latin American, so it builds that representation, the idea of representation and role models. Some of these students are new to English, and yet they're contributing to real science, and that's how powerful belief and opportunity can be. With the London Stock Exchange, we've launched a financial literacy program for Year 10s, equipping students, especially those from migrant and low-income backgrounds, with vital knowledge about money, savings, and future plannings. These are the tools they'll carry into adult life with confidence. In years 7 to 9, we have a social mobility program in partnership, again, alongside UCL and London Citizens, which explores themes of justice, aspiration, and leadership. Students work on campaigns, speak to decision makers, and learn how to be agents of change. The most incredible part, many of them start the program quiet and unsure and finish it standing at the front of a room with a microphone. These aren't just projects, they are life-shaping experiences. Our EAL students are now achieving higher GCSE results, gaining extra qualifications, and joining extracurricular activities that once felt out of reach. And all of this has led to St Gabriel's being recognised as one of the top EAL schools in Lambeth. This impact reaches far beyond the school gates. Outside the classroom, I run free support groups and bilingual information sessions, because we can't just educate the child, we must empower the whole family, helping families navigate the UK system and connecting them with resources through the Bay Tree Centre, Earmore, and Lambeth Citizens. Because when schools and families work together, young people flourish. One of my favourite methods is using dance, in my case, Latin American dance and storytelling workshops, not just as a celebration, but as a way of connecting. When a child sees their culture reflected back in a school space, it sends a clear message: you are here. I've seen students go from shy and disengaged to vibrant leaders simply because they were given the space to express who they are. These results have been transformative. Students in our EAL programme are not only improving their English faster, but are passing GCSEs, earning additional qualifications, and joining more extracurricular activities than ever before, many of which we actually run on the weekends to keep them engaged and inspired. While my example focuses on the Latin American community, the largest EAL group at the school where I work, this approach can actually be adapted for any community in any school. The key is to start by listening. Speak to students and their families, investigate their cultural heritage and research their migration stories, build links with community organisations, celebrate their festivals, and invite parents to share their experiences. When schools take the time to understand and reflect the identities of their students, every child, regardless of background, can feel seen, safe, and ready to thrive. I do this work because I truly believe that every child deserves not only the tools to succeed, but also the confidence to dream and the knowledge that their culture is something to be proud of, not something to hide, which many students can feel right at the beginning. Many of our former students have gone on to sixth form, university, and meaningful careers. Some actually come back and mentor others. That's the legacy of care. It's not just about today's lessons, it's about tomorrow's leaders. Now, I'm conscious of time, but if you'd like to connect, collaborate, or hear more about what we do at the school, you can find me on social media at La Miss Lopez on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. But finally, thank you for listening. And I really hope that this inspires you to keep building classrooms and communities, because where every young person feels seen, heard, and deeply cared for, they will feel empowered, because when we empower students, we don't just change their lives, we change the world around them. Thank you very much.
Claudia, that was amazing. Thank you. And thank you for drawing all those threads together from all of our speakers. If you'd like to put your cameras back on, I really, what was coming through to me was this link between listening to build connection and to build confidence, and the incredible power that those three aspects have. And I think it really infused what you were doing and what all of you were doing. And I found it very inspiring. I'm sure that our audience would have thought that too. And I hope lots of people connect with Claudia. We've put details of the work that Claudia has been doing at St Gabriel's College in the chat, and also about Nahed's work and Megan and Nikki's work, so you can find out more about that. And I'd also strongly encourage people who aren't sort of au fait with pause, our tool, to have a look at that, because it has some really good practical information that you can use. So, our speakers, I'm going to start putting some questions to you. I'll just get through as many as we can in the time, but I'm going to start with slightly the elephant in the room, that not everyone in our communities is welcoming towards people seeking sanctuary. And how should schools navigate that? Have you got some practical thoughts? And I will go to each of you in turn, I think. So, Megan, would you like to start?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's a huge question at the moment. Unfortunately, we are living in a quite divided society. There are lots of, very polarized opinions, and as a network, we have unfortunately seen quite a lot of backlash at different points, whether that is of schools talking about these issues, simply hearing the stories of people with lived experience, or even saying we want to do better by our students who are seeking safety. People fear that that's a prioritization of a certain group of students. I think what we always advise schools is to lean into kind of who they are, in essence, lean into their school values. These are things that theoretically parent carers have bought into. That's the reason they send their child to that school. It is what makes that school the place that their child is at. And so, lead with your values. You're doing this because you are a school where one of your values is kindness or compassion, or being an active citizen, or whatever it might be. I think as well, in some cases, schools are faith schools, in which case lean into that as well. That is what makes your school what it is, and that's why you support all of your learners and support all of your community as well. I think the only other thing I would say, and it's things that very much resonate with what you were saying, Claudia, about making it relevant to your community. I think that there are so many misconceptions and misinformation about seeking safety. And before you start at myth busting, which can be really easy and tempting to do, it's actually really important to try and build connection and understanding and relevance within communities, helping everyone to understand that migration is not something that happens just to other people in other places, but it's something with which we're all very intimately connected with in different ways. That might be more recent for some people. That might be that child's own experience. It might be their parents' experience. But, it might be a little further afield or in different ways. It might be a grandma who came over from Ireland, or an uncle who moved to Australia, or a sister studying in France. And it's about kind of exploring those journeys first and foremost, and exploring the commonalities and the differences in that, and building those connections. And then from that, you can start talking about things that people might find a bit trickier to talk about in other ways.
Thanks very much, Megan. If I'd love to hear Nahed's views, and then I'll come to Nikki and Claudia.
Thank you. I would add here of what Megan has talked about also the changing the ideas that people had from social media, because sometimes you build an idea about those people, they come from this area, that they are blah, blah, blah. So sometimes it's good to explain that we are equal, we are the same, the value of the UK, that we have the right, if they have the right to live in the UK, they have the right to be equal at school, equal on the community, and how they can help us to build the community in the UK. So don't think about the different, think about how they can be a part of this community to help us to be better where we are. And I think it can start with the stuff on the school before the student themselves, because if the teacher in the classroom have the value of that, she can pass that to the student and make maybe some assemblies, also involve their parents to explain who they are. And I will add here something that in my kids' school, I went a few times to do assemblies to talk about who am I, why I dress like this, what we can do, how we do in Ramadan, how we do. It's something very small, but actually when they understand who you are and why you celebrate on that day and why you do this on that day, it's really interesting. You open the world to the children. It's not just about accept the migration, it's also for them to accept how can they live with those people, and how they can build the community together without thinking about we are different, or how we can be together against how we can be without each other.
I love that, and I think we're great in the UK at being tolerant and accepting, but actually we want more than that, don't we? And I love what you're saying about to go beyond that to the next step. And Nikki, I wondered the points you made when you were talking about hidden talents and cultural reciprocity. Can that play into helping deal with some of these polarized views?
Yeah, absolutely. I concur with what Nahed and Megan said about all the misinformation and the social media and the press giving, if you like, a false narrative often, and it's about then having. And it's the classic othering, isn't it? You know, often we see that in the media, this othering. So we have to be aware that children in our classrooms, they will be exposed to this as well. So we do have to be proactive, and we do have to think about building and weaving into our curriculum ways of exploring these topics and building that empathy with the children. And as Megan says, it's often coming from giving them, if you like, that sort of being in the shoes of experience and thinking how, you know, sort of it would look. Just on this point, last weekend, me and a colleague, we organise annually trips to do volunteering in Care for Calais. And we take different teachers from Warwickshire every year. And really, it's about this. It's about them seeing and meeting asylum seekers and hearing their stories and having that human contact. And we always get it every year, teachers being completely amazed because, you know, they met, people who are extremely skilled, dentists and doctors, and, you know, they weren't expecting that. And one of them went back and she did a year 9 lesson, and then she shared that with us. And she did something very similar about sort of thinking about, well, this has happened. She did a scenario, if you like, of something happening to this country, similar, that they would find themselves in a similar situation. So she didn't talk about, you know, actual cases. She did some role playing with them and then talked it through there. And that's afterwards when they started talking about, well, this is how these people are in this situation, and they're very limited safe and legal routes, and this is why they don't have a passport and that sort of thing. So it really is something that I think we really do need to step up and do, because it's very important, particularly now with there's a lot of divisiveness in the world, isn't there? And we need to be really thinking about how we can, if you like, safeguard our children. So yeah.
What a brilliant idea. Claudia, anything you'd like to add before we go to the next question?
Yeah, and it's pretty much the same. You know, with everything that children are viewing online, some of it has some truth to it, some of it absolutely doesn't. I think it's really important that we don't get scared by these topics, because I think a lot of people get scared to tackle these topics and talk about them openly, thinking kind of, if I kind of don't answer it or I kind of ignore it, it might go away, when we know that absolutely it will not. So I think it's about really tackling it head on. If you hear something, I think in schools as well, there might be some staff members that won't feel as confident to talk about certain topics, and actually maybe they're not the right person to do that. But for the school to have that open communication, hey, we are an inclusive, diverse school. We are accepting of all people, staff, that includes staff and students and families and any extra organizations, outside organizations that we may have in the school, and we will not tolerate it. So it becomes a whole school ethos. Yeah, instead of certain people, or, you know, maybe they're in the EAL department or the languages department or whatever, so they may tackle it. No, it's a whole school ethos. It's how the school community works. We are inclusive and we are diverse. Look at the community that we have surrounding us, and we celebrate everything. And if these issues, if we come across anything, we tackle it head on. We don't shy away from it, because we are there to educate all children. Children are under our care throughout the day, and parents, you know, are putting their children's lives in our hands. So how can we not educate them and open them up to the topics that are going on around them? Because if they, you know, if they're hearing all this misleading information from social media, we are the educators, we are the adults that need to be like, hey, this is not right. Okay, I understand you may think this and this and this and this, but actually let's have an open conversation with you and we will talk about it. Celebrating other students' cultures, staff members' cultures, you know, in what languages people speak. Hey, what's your story? What's your story? This is my story. And just being open about all of these topics and not shying away from it, because I think sometimes that's what people tend to do. Oh, I don't feel comfortable talking about that. Maybe they're going to take it the wrong way, so I won't say anything. And I think we've come to a point in the world today where we cannot be kept silent. We cannot, as a migrant woman, I will speak up and I will speak my story and I will hear others and make sure that other voices are heard. And that goes for adults and children.
I completely agree. Claudia, it's brilliant. And that no fear and don't dance around it, but take it on is the way to go. Okay, another question. I'll put this to Megan. Unaccompanied minors can be challenging for schools. What advice would you give schools who are dealing with unaccompanied minors?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's something that, you know, it's a group of students that schools often really worry about. I think a lot of the same principles stand. I think, you know, obviously in this case, they're not here with their parents, but I think very much it's really important that you build a positive relationship with their social worker, with any carer that they have, making sure you have good communication there. I think it's also really important to remember that for children who arrive alone, the very nature of their journey here means that they often see themselves as adults. They've gone through some really hard experiences alone, and so it can be really challenging to then be in a school context where they are treated as children or young people. And so really bear that in mind where possible. You know, give them opportunities where they can choose and be in control, give them opportunities to be responsible and have responsibility for things, and think about the way that you're communicating with them as well. You know, making sure you recognize those experiences that they've gone through, and that sense of being an adult or of having gone through those things alone that they will have. I think the other thing that's really important is, again, linking back to community and thinking about how you can help them build that community. I know a number of schools around me that have welcomed quite a large number of young people from Afghanistan who have arrived alone. And what's worked really well for them And I mean, it's just worked really well for these young people, is that they've built a relationship with a local cricket club. And these children are fantastic cricketers, and they're able to make friends through that, and also excel in that space, and be fantastic at what they're good at and what they enjoy doing. And so looking for opportunities like that where they can be fulfilled outside of school and build connections and community outside of school in as much as in school as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Megan. And linked to that, perhaps, but wider than that, another question has come to us. How do we know if children have been through trauma if they don't speak English and show no signs of trauma on the surface? And what should schools do? Claudia or Nikki, would you like to give us your thoughts?
I mean, it's really hard to know what specific trauma a child has faced in their home country. And I think that's why it's so important, because they're not going to willingly say it. Well, most of them won't. Families, if they are with a family members tend to keep these things a secret because they might feel ashamed or scared that the school will have some sort of negative thoughts or views on their child. And as an EAL lead, I think it's really important to monitor all EAL children when they arrive, because there can be those specific signs that you might see. You know, if they're in a particular lesson, let's take something like history or geography, and they seem triggered by something, so make a note of that. If it happens somewhere else, are they fearful of certain things? Do they shy away from talking or drawing, or what have they drawn, what kind of language are they using? And it is really hard, because if you don't speak the language, how are you going to do this? So I think it's a lot of it is through observation. If you have someone that does speak the same language, that's always helpful. But really putting these children in touch with members from their community organizations. I know it's really hard, but there are organizations out there for specific communities that you can source help from. That's what I do. And then try and see if you can find them some sort of counselling. I mean, if students are coming from particular countries, it's kind of, okay, I think they may, not to stereotype, but it's, you're fearful. For example, Colombia, if I know a student has come from a particular city, from a particular area, I'm like, okay, I know what that kind of area is like. They may have witnessed things that a child should not have witnessed. So I think it's all about monitoring students and really noticing those little hints that they give. And it could be through, not wanting to see something and not wanting to really engage in an activity, shying away if they're talking about certain members of the family. But it is hard, but there will be signs. You just need to be able to spot them. And really, in the end, the children will give it up. They will.
That is good to know, and excellent ideas. That point about observation is so important. Nikki, I know that Karen's going to hurry me up in a second, but if there's anything else you'd like to add before we close up.
Yes, no, I agree with what Claudia was saying, but just to add that, of course, bear in mind, not all, we said that the not one size fits all, and there's a very variable group, so not all children do have are suffering from trauma. And I think it goes back to the point that we were all talking about at the beginning, that if we get the welcome right, if we get the provision right, if all of that, giving them that sense of belonging and sense of self and identity, and helping them with all the pastoral support, particularly at the beginning, and monitoring throughout, and making sure that they understand that there is a study pathway for them, that they are going to be able to realize their ambitions and their aspirations. If we get that right, I think that you know, the trauma side of thing is not the thing that we necessarily focus on. I think we focus on getting the provision right. Clearly, if there's some children who are displaying levels of dysregulation, then that would need, you know, attention. And like Claudia, we also work with quite a few agencies who are specialists in mental health for refugees and asylum seekers. But I really think it's about getting the provision right, and then you're less likely to see children with mental health issues.
Thank you, Nikki. And Megan and Caroline have both put some useful resources in the chat. So thanks very much. Nahed, Nikki, Megan, Claudia, I wish we had another hour. I feel we've only just got started, and there's such a depth and richness to your experience. I wish we had more time, but sadly we don't. But I'd like to thank, on behalf of the Bell Foundation and all our audience today, thank you for some really, really brilliant insights. I'm so grateful. And I'll hand over to Caroline to see us out.
Thank you so much, Radha, and everybody. It was a really fabulous session. And I think, especially on such a hot evening, thank you so much for giving up your time and sharing your expertise with us. Before I forget, I have been given permission to share an absolutely fabulous video with you of Nahed's children. And I think I'm right in saying, so I've just shared it in the chat. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Nikki and Nahed, that it's entered into a competition for Warwickshire on Warwickshire's website. That's right. So when you have a moment, it's definitely another video worth a watch. So I'm just going to share my screen very quickly to give you just a few updates on things that we've got going on. Let me just move this.
While you're looking for that, Caroline, I forgot to mention your amazing Bell Foundation post-16 guidance.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks for mentioning that,
So
Nikki.
please, yes, use that, because it's absolutely excellent. We've been using it with year 11s.
Amazing. I'm just struggling now to show the right slides. So give me 1 second and I will do that.
And for anyone who hasn't had a chance to follow the chat, there's some really amazing resources in there. So do scroll back if you can, and there are lots of useful links there.
And we will be sharing all of those links when we email you with all of the handouts and so forth, and the recording of the session. So I'm just
it looks promising, Caroline.
Ideally now without notes. Right, here we go. How's that looking?
Yeah.
Perfect. Amazing. So just to let you all know then that we have also shared some resources that have been created for Refugee Week. So some classroom teaching resources that are all curriculum related. And as you can see, they span the range of key stages. So I really hope that there's something there that will be useful for everybody to either use yourselves or share with other people that you know in your networks. That would be amazing. Also, closely linked, you probably already know that the Bell Foundation are writing some guidance on working with late arrivals, following on from research from RUK into late arrival learners' experience of education. So an enormous thank you to everybody who responded to the survey that went out about schools. Now we're turning our attention to post-16. So if you or anybody in your networks have experience of working with learners who arrived after the age of 13, who are now or have been in post-16 education, we'd really love to hear from you. So there's a short survey there. You can scan that, and there are book tokens as thank you for I think it's 10 people who respond to the survey, so there'll be a draw for those. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see that the teaching resource and teaching resource and guidance focus group is on the 24th of June. This link is just a very quick, yes, I can attend, I'm interested in attending. So if you are interested, if you have experience of using the Bell Foundation's teaching resources and guidance, we'd really, really love to hear from you, because we're doing some work on evaluating how they're being used with a view to making sure that they are the most useful possible that they can be. So please, we'd love people to join us. Even if you've taken a look and decided they're not for you, we would really love to know more about your thinking. So just to let you know as well of what else is coming up, the next webinar that we've got is on the 9th of July, and that will be the launch of our new proformas and guidance to support schools evaluate and develop their EAL provision. And again, we'll be absolutely delighted to be sharing expertise from some practitioners. So we'll have Karen Thomas from Portsmouth MTAS team, and Kerry James, head teacher at Christ Church School in Weston-super-Mare, sharing their expertise around evaluating whole school EAL provision. Looking ahead to September, our next course will be Introduction to Assessment. And you can see that's already advertised on the website. And finally, as well as the courses and webinars that we run ourselves and the free self-access training that's available on the website, we have a team of absolutely fantastic licensed practitioners. In fact, Nikki is one of them, who run our training across England and Wales. So if you go onto the map on the website, on the regional training page on the website, you'll be able to see where training is offered in your area. And you'll also be able to see what courses those practitioners are offering, as well as in other parts of the country as well. So, and those dates will be updated throughout the summer as our practitioners are adding to their offer. So please do check in again. So yet again, thank you so much to the panel and to Radha. It's been such a lovely session, and it would have been great to continue that discussion. Thank you to everybody for giving up an hour of a very hot evening to join us. I hope you've really got something useful out of it, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Tomorrow you will receive an email with the recording of the webinar together with all of the links that we've shared. Thank you so much.